Hello. So, I did my first verbal debate a few weeks ago, and I've been a little busy with real life, but I kind of wanted to go through this. First verbal debate ever. Probably didn't perform as well as I should have, and I'm absolutely fine with that. I think that showing this growth live is not only transparent, but can help other people grow if they're interested in getting better at debating as well. So, if you'd like, come join me and we'll take a look at my debate performance here.
In a lot of my replies.
Oh, also, I'm going to try to make this like a 3-4 part series so that the videos don't get too long. As you can see, it was a 2-hour conversation, and if we skip through the beginning here and the end, it's probably like an hour and a half worth. So I could probably break it down to 3 videos.
What's up, Scuzz? What's up, Cernu? Is it earlier today?
Oh, doing well. Thank you, sir. These are introductions.
Chill debate politics whenever and to attempt. Or in some sense with some, I think that I'm probably one of the biggest punching bags in the Discord. So you're more than welcome to come chill, debate politics whenever. And really, this is my pastime, my hobby. I'm not like, I have a day job.
Okay, so let's start there. So Pisco banned me from his Discord a couple days after this because I fact-checked him on Twitter. He was speaking about the Crossfire Hurricane, and I stated that Crossfire Hurricane was started with Papadopoulos investigation, and also that Strzok filed a bunch of records within a 6-month period where he said there wasn't enough evidence to open a full-scale investigation, and that was what Durham cited in the Durham report. And when I said these things to him, he said, fact-check me here on Twitter, but then started pinging me in his Discord, telling me if I don't shut up, he's going to ban me from the Discord. Told him to kiss my ass, essentially. I don't need anything from this dude. I was just trying to, have some friendly debates, but as you can see, he throws a lot of tantrums as soon as you fact check him, so we'll get into that.
Job and stuff, so I do this for fun as well. So I am also an average debate enjoyer. And with that, I think we might as well get started. And I'll sort of frame out what I sort of see as the main points of contention. And you can tell me if you disagree with that or if you think there's other elements to it, and we can take it from there. How about that?
Absolutely.
Sure. Yeah. So I think the background of what we're looking about and talking about has to do, I think, in some sense with some might say semantic differences that between us, or semantic differences in terms of how we identify things.
Remember this introduction, because right now he's just saying it's semantic differences. And remember what he says.
Those are using words like insurrection, using words like coup attempt, that you seem to take disagreement
Remember
with.
this, because this is what he points out, and then he later asserts that these things are true. When I try to challenge him on it, he loses it.
In my Twitter posts, I think that's certainly one of the things that's animated me, is that I've made some posts in the last few days highly critical of Trump, and highly critical of what he's done. And that might be something, sort of the tenor of that you might agree with for reasons of just not liking Trump. But to me, the words that I'm using are deliberate and intentional. And so people take issue with them using words like coup attempt or insurrection. Those are things I'd like to hash out. So I would see that as sort of like this. And there's other stuff around that as well, that I would say there is some substance to them, because I'm sure there's like factual underpinnings to our identifications for some of these labels or terms, however you want to use them. But I also think that there's a lot of like potato there, and it's possible that reasonable minds can disagree about that. And then I would say the other more like substantive stuff has to do with what I think is your critique that you wanted to bring to me, or some ideas you want to bring my way about double standards in the DOJ, the pending Trump indictment, the classified document stuff.
We never get to any of that, so you can kind of ignore this part.
That's what I would sort of see as like substantive differences as well. So let me know if I missed anything.
No, absolutely. I didn't want to get into the pending indictment yet, just because I don't know much about it until it gets out. And
Or the documents one.
Same thing with Georgia. I'm waiting to see if there's an indictment as well before I even go there. But I will touch on it. I got it in my notes here, but
Sure.
mostly, yeah, it's more about things that I see as slightly hyperbole on Twitter. And again, I have a few examples here. One, you attempted coup. Another, you called him a traitor. That one really kind of, the implication of that
Sure.
means a traitor, treasonous, means he should be put to death. And I don't think you mean that by it, but that's kind of an implication behind the word, which is why I don't like the hyperbole more than anything. You did say, though, Trump didn't lift a finger on January 6th to stop people from rioting, and I completely agree with that. I think Trump disqualified himself from polite society by doing what he did after the 2020 election. So, well, my first mistake. I could have rephrased that better because I don't completely agree with that. And we actually get into it a little bit about that particular topic because he did lift a finger. I just think he didn't do enough soon enough is a better way to put that. So right out the gates, there's me messing up. So remember, your introduction is the summary of your argument, so it's pretty important to state what you're about to argue in your introduction. I don't think Pisco even cares about having that level of integrity, because from what you'll see from his introduction, it has nothing to do with what he's talking about. So I don't think we disagree that much.
Okay, can we pause there for a few moments?
Absolutely.
So I'll take it sort of in reverse order. When I say Trump didn't lift a finger, you don't take that to mean that I think that there's no causal relationship between what he did. So I sort of attribute a lot of responsibility to Trump and the ensuing riot and insurrection. What I would label riot and insurrection at the Capitol. And so when I say he didn't lift a finger, what I'm referencing is he stood by and let it happen, the violence in the moment as it was being breached, and did nothing to stop it. But I don't mean.
Okay, remember, he said he did nothing to stop it. Nothing, meaning absolutely zero, to prevent the riot. And I challenge him on that. So
that to remove him of responsibility for initiating it. I think that he's central to what happened on January 6th in a causal culpability sense, as well as being generally negligent. Even if he was like totally against what's happening, even if he were someone who didn't have a central causal role in what's going on, I would also attribute to him the negligence of not responding with force as quickly as he should have.
Which the second part of this and the first part of this don't add up, but he's giving two different caveats. And the second caveat, or the second part, I agree with. I think he could have done more sooner and used force sooner and not been so kind to his supporters when he addressed them half an hour after the riot started, but we're going to get to that. I can kind of vaguely agree with both of those statements, probably a little differently than you're intending them, but I don't see anything wrong with that.
Okay, so I just want to be clear about that. When I say didn't lift a finger, I mean the decision not to at once, as you may know, and I think there was some discussion about this with some dummies in my replies as well, the president and the Secretary of Defense has a great deal of control over the DC National Guard. They're the ones who activate. The chain of command goes to the president. His failure to activate, the DOD's delay in activation of the relevant state National Guards, which was attested to by various governors, the general lack of any statement by the then president condemning, immediately asking to retreat and to.
So now he didn't say just nothing. He elaborated that Trump made no statements and did not call in the National Guard. Both of those things are false. He called in the National Guard. It was just 2 hours later. It was a little bit late. Absolutely, we both agree on that. But he's saying it just never happened here. And he's also saying Trump made no statements previous to that as well.
Get out of the Capitol and waiting hours for that to happen, for a coordinated response, is absolutely unthinkable. And absolutely, as you say, discrediting and disqualifying in an ethical, political sense, for him to ever hold elected office as a comptroller or dog catcher, let alone the highest office in the land. When I say the word traitor, I'm not trying to by implication invoke the legal standard of treason or the punishment for treason. I don't even believe in the death penalty. And so if I was cavalier in using the term traitor, I'm using it in the colloquial sense to say he's a traitor to what America.
I'm pretty sure this is essentially confirming my point. When I say traitor, I don't mean he's a traitor. When I say traitor, I mean less than that. I'm using hyperbole, is basically what he just admitted to, kind of just conceding the point. If I was better at debating, I would have picked that up right then and there and be like, well, you just essentially granted my premise, so thank you. But I didn't.
America stands for, and that includes conduct related to January 6th, but also all the conduct before it that totally betray a lack of sincerity and faith and belief and defense of the founding and most central principles of our democracy or constitutional republic, if you're a boomer.
I mean, I can kind of, and to bolster your point, during the rioting, he said Pence deserved it, apparently, is what was testified under in the January 6th hearings, and that would bolster your point. I don't think his actions were great. I think he could have done more. I think the narrative, I felt bad because his argument kind of sucked, and so instead of pushing back on him, I tried to help him out, because he was just so vague and dumb and all over the place, and he's just insulting people that disagree with him. I don't know. I tried to help him out here because I felt bad. If Nancy Pelosi took the security out of there is just to obfuscate blame away from Trump. Absolutely. I kind of want to get into the argument that I was giving on Twitter with just more depth to it. So I wanted to break it down into two different things. First, the comparison I was making to other election denial. And this doesn't get into Trump's actions so much as his rhetoric around the election denial stuff. Sure. Trump told a bunch of mistruths about the 2020. Now, if they're a lie, that's in my mind attributing intention that we don't know. And you could pick out some factoids that lead you to back up that claim that he was doing it intentionally, but I think there's a lot of factoids that actually disprove that as well.
Well, can I give you one example of what I consider to be an election lie? So a lie, as you say, attributes intentionality, correct? I mean, that's true. I mean, just saying something that's false is not a lie. When you go out and also, by the way, when I say a lie, deliberate lie, I'm not going to allow willful blindness, right? Some kind of malicious non-knowing, where like someone is just like not opening their eyes or pretending not or claiming not to see, right? So where it's a hard look at what people. I'm never going to just accept the ridiculous. There's some guy named Hypertroller in our Discord who will often pose these things like, well, it's possible that when he was talking out loud with reference to the documents, that he wasn't actually showing the documents, and he was just like doing a play or something, or he was just showing not the thing that he was saying he was showing. So there's always going to be a level of scrutiny that I'm going to apply whenever we're deciding on intentionality levels. But just to give you one.
Take this as a note. To him, lying isn't somebody deliberately misleading you when they know better. To him, lying is willful blindness, and he doesn't really back that up with anything. He just says, if you should know the truth, like if it's out there somewhere and you could go read it and you just choose not to, then you're lying, which is not the standard for lying in a legal setting, and it's not the standard for lying in a colloquial setting. Lying is intentionally mistelling the truth when you know it's not the truth. It's a very high standard because you're accusing somebody of doing something intentionally, where most of the time it's ignorance or malice. And willful blindness would be a form of ignorance, less defensible one, but still a form of ignorance. So what he's saying is ignorance is lying, not actually lying here. So we kind of get into that as well, but I just wanted to rephrase that a little bit.
Sort of example to wrap your head around. When on election night itself, you say this is a fraud, something to that effect. I believe he said either those words or something quite close to that. That they're cheating at a time when you don't have yet the evidence to show that they're cheating. That is to say, you are declaring something to be false, fraudulent, before it's possible for you to know, to have the facts to back that up. That saying that it's a fraud is lying about your confidence level, right? You're saying it's a fraud, but there's no reason. You have no reason to believe it's a fraud.
Where does he get this? He never backs this up. So I'm going to go at him a little bit about the points of the mail-in ballots coming in overnight. 200,000 mail-in ballots, all for Joe Biden, came in all at once in Wisconsin. There were polling stations getting shut down for different reasons, people putting cardboard on the windows, etc. And Trump's internal polling data did not match up with what the results of the election were. So there was more than enough evidence for him to come to this conclusion, even if we know now that the conclusion is false. And I bring this up, but like he's just literally pulling this out of his ass because he doesn't know what he's talking about. So
there's no basis for you to utter those words. And so for you to say this is a fraud at a time when you don't know the fact of the matter. The fact of the matter later turns out to be completely wrong and unsubstantiated. But at the time you said that, you did not have the factual basis. You didn't know this bullshit about the Georgia whatever that was later debunked, the moving the printers, the ballots underneath in the box, right? You didn't have the error in Michigan, the Antietam, whatever the county was that did that, or the other nonsense people are bringing up.
That did happen election night. So yes, you did have that election night. All of that. I don't know why he's saying this, but all of these things were being reported. How does he know that Trump wasn't informed of these things when I was just by watching CNN?
You didn't have the Dominion, the fully realized, crystallized version of the Dominion conspiracy. And so to say in that moment, prior to any possible evidence being presented to you that what's going on is fraudulent, or indeed fraudulent enough to steal the election from you, if we're really being technical about it, it wouldn't be enough for there to just be fraud in one state. It would have to be dispositive. Remember, we don't even know that Biden's going to win at that moment, even legitimately. For him to say, I won, frankly, we did win this election, that must be a lie. Surely you agree with that.
So he says a bunch of things here that just are pulled out of his ass, statements that aren't facts that he pretends they are. As I just gave you some counterpoint or some points here, probably should have argued all those points. You don't know that. These things happened on election night. I don't know where you're getting this information of you know what Trump knew on election night, because I knew these things, again, just from watching CNN. That would be the proper response to attack his point, but let's see where I go and if it's any good. Yeah, I think you're referring to William Barr's statements that he made, basically Trump calling...
No. Donald Trump on election night says, frankly, we did win this election. That's a lie.
Oh yeah. Well, William Barr made similar statements as well, I think to the January 6th hearing, about exactly what you're saying as well, saying Trump was calling it a fraud before there was any proof. I substantiate his statements for him because he just says, Donald Trump said this, and he doesn't even know where it came from, that the election was even finished yet. So William Barr backs up.
Is that a lie? Do you agree that's a lie?
No, he probably did that. I think you may be jumping to conclusions here, because Trump has actually spoken about this in particular and justified why he thought that. A bit of it was silly things like vote by mail and blah, blah, blah. But another was that the results of the election weren't matching up with a lot of their internal and external polling data. Okay. I did better than I thought here. So I should have hammered home on the vote by mail thing and called him out for false statements about that Michigan 200,000 ballot spike from mail-in voting, but I didn't want to hammer home on that. I'm not a big election denier from 2020 or generally, and so I kind of didn't want to hammer home on that point to not come off that way, but I should have, because he said something factually false. But yeah, I think that was a pretty solid response from me. They had, especially in places like Georgia. So he was seeing indiscrepancies. I think he has spoken about that a couple of times. So that is what he's sticking to. I don't know if what is in his head, but that's what he's saying was his justification for indiscrepancies.
He would have no. So what you're saying is essentially he has deluded himself so far, right? That someone who would be able to say at that moment, when not even no commentator can say who won the election at that moment, legitimately. No one has said Biden has won the election. In fact, at various moments, Trump, if you were to stop the voting, Biden would win, but at various moments, Trump would have won if you stopped the voting. And so this thing was, and in the end, the Electoral College discrepancies in the various states, it was in the tens of thousands. It was, even though it was a comfortable electoral and popular vote win, on the margin, it was quite narrow, actually, right? And so for someone to say in that moment, in my opinion, that frankly we did win this election, is either lying or willful blind, or totally schizophrenic and delusional person would say that. So here's the false dichotomy, and again, I should call this out as a false dichotomy. That would be the proper response. So there's only two options: either he's stupid or he's evil, and that's the hyperbole that I'm trying to address in the first place. Is there's a lot of reasonable ways people could come to this conclusion, and just to say he's either schizophrenic and stupid or he's willfully evil are not the only two, and it's kind of just the hyperbole he likes to dance around. So my proper response there would be to call that out. Let's see how I do. And because I don't think he's those things, I think he said that because based on my experience being utterly inundated with this person's statements and his conduct for the past he's not really an expert on Trump because he doesn't know most of what he says, and that's kind of exposed here. He had no idea why Trump thought that on November 4th that the 2020 election was not correct. He just made up some reasons. He had no idea what Trump said. So he just lied. Or, told a mistruth. But I think he knows better. Maybe he does believe that. Maybe he actually does believe he's like a Trump expert, despite the fact that he's probably never watched a Trump rally or anything like that. Like tons of years, right? Almost 8 years, going on 8 years. He doesn't strike me as someone who is schizophrenic. I think he's more malicious than people give credit for. So in that sense, I don't believe him at all that he very well could have won that election. And the fact that he might have still won, at which case he would say that the election was not fraudulent and not stolen, presumably if he had won, right? It must be the case in my mind that any reasonable person would look at that statement and say that's a lie. I get what you're saying. Like, I definitely hear it. I've heard this before. I can see how you come to these conclusions. I don't like to attribute malice when you can blame ignorance, and I definitely think you can blame ignorance. I'm sorry, now I'm getting triggered. Now, here's the first time that he throws a little bit of a tantrum because I didn't just give him the point. So he basically said this false dichotomy: either he's stupid or he's evil. And I'm trying to say here kind of that there's more conclusions, and you're jumping to one just because you like it, and he cuts me off with, I'm getting upset. Too fucking bad, dude. If you don't like talking politics with people you disagree with, don't. I'm going to take a minute. Finish your thought.
Yeah, so I've heard Trump speak about this. I watch a lot of his rallies and things. I watch a lot of everyone speak as much as possible. I've heard Trump speak about this, and he does. Maybe it's for his legal defense. Maybe you're right, and he knows exactly what he's doing. And he's saying these exact words to set up his legal defense in the future. I just don't think he's that intelligent. I've watched the guy speak for so long. I don't think he's a very smart person. I just don't think this consistency that you're applying to him actually works for him. We've seen him flip on a dime on all kinds of things that would benefit him. Like when Paul Ryan gave him a plan to build the wall, make Mexico pay for it, which was his campaign promise, he turned it down because he didn't want to give Paul Ryan any credit for it or whatever his excuse was. I just don't think he's a very intelligent guy. I don't think he's smart enough to be as malicious as you say.
Yeah, I don't really. I think there are smart liars, there are dumb liars. I've been bringing up Darrell Brooks a lot, or Darrell Brooks, I think, in the trial.
Now again, he just combines his two theses, willful ignorance or lying, and just combines them together, and now Trump is a liar with no proof.
Call him Darrell
I watched that whole trial. I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah, he's a dumb liar. He's a very dumb and malicious liar. And he lies almost with everything he says. Certainly in the police interviews right after what happened. If you guys don't know who I'm referencing a guy who like murdered a bunch of old people and kids in a Christmas parade car crash rampage.
Waukesha.
In Waukesha.
Yeah, I'm guessing he didn't watch that trial because Darrell Brooks did lie in the interviews, and he continued to lie. He did walk a lot of his lies back, but he continued to lie, and the reason we know he was lying is because we have video evidence that what he was saying he was doing was different than what he was actually doing. He said he was trying to slow down, he was honking his horn, he was yelling to get out of the way, trying to stop, and he was doing none of those things, and there's actually a picture of him with a smile on his face, and people were saying he was accelerating and driving into traffic. So when you have eyewitness testimony and video evidence of somebody telling you something that didn't actually happen, then we can conclude it's a lie because there's proof of that. And if we had a smoking gun on Trump to that level, I would concede that he's lying, but we don't.
And that.
So that's the right counter argument here is for his bad analogy. So let's see if I do that.
So I don't buy this. Well, he's too dumb to lie. That to me doesn't really pass the sniff test. And what's more, like you're like, how can I attribute malice to Trump? What other possible motive explains that statement at that time?
Again,
other than
I've already explained this. He just ignored my point because that's the only way you can have an argument is ignoring everything that refutes his argument.
Trying to seed doubt, other than trying to take a hold on the reins of power by misconstruing the facts that exist at the time.
To me, it's a cell phone. If somebody says, I can't think of any other way besides the one way I did, you're just basically admitting you're stupid. Which, this guy says he's a lawyer, but after hearing some of his arguments, I guarantee you he's like some paralegal doing coffee runs. He's never probably tried a case.
You're saying I won. No reasonable person, even a dumb person, I would say, wouldn't have the evidence at that moment to be able to claim that they won the election.
Yeah, no, so let me give you a few of my examples as to why I think this. And one of them is going to be after the election, they strengthened, I don't know, I'm not a legal person, you probably know this better than I do, but they strengthened the law that, it was brought up in the CNN town hall, they strengthened the law that Trump misread, or Trump's attorneys misread and gave him bad intel for, but they strengthened that law to allow it so they couldn't even be misread anymore. In Trump's eyes, he thinks he was right, and they changed the law so that they could prevent future people from taking the route.
Yeah, so it's like we were saying, like the electoral count act, there was an effort made to emphasize the vice president's role is purely ceremonial.
Yep, that's it.
And those are the kind of situations, I think it's a perfect example. There are people, right, who think
it wasn't purely ceremonial, it was passed for a particular reason, so.
It's plausible that Trump can just say, well, my interpretation of the Constitution is that the vice president can decide elections using their own discretion.
That's not Trump's interpretation of the Constitution.
And therefore, because that's
nor was that the legal advice he was given.
Plausible reading of the Constitution, him asking Pence to do essentially the same thing, there's no possible criminality there. There's no possible malintent there because he can just claim that his reading of the Constitution is such that the vice president has the authority to do this. That, taken to its logical, I think, what I consider to be the logical conclusion of that belief, is that he could raise any frivolous argument and we would be bound to accept it. We would be bound to accept something like,
what a dumb guy.
In the classified documents case, well, isn't it potentially possible that I thought I had the power to unilaterally, in my mind, declassify stuff? or to
And
render it
this,
something.
none of this addresses my point. So he tells me at the end of this debate that I did a good job, and then when I fact checked him on Twitter, he had a little bit of a meltdown and said I'm a terrible debater. But watching him here again, oh man, he's doing he doesn't even address my point. I'm talking about examples that Trump brings us up, that they changed the Electoral Count Act, so I was right. And when I bring that up to him, he just doesn't address it. He goes off some tangent here.
Somehow not national defense information for purposes of the...
About how the implications of this could be broad. So what? That has nothing to do with what we're talking about, dude. Like, you're fucking awful at this.
Of the Espionage Act. Like, were we to lend credence to these theories, and now it's very bad for Trump in the classified documents case that he's on the record saying essentially I don't have this authority, but we would never accept these kinds of...
Also, isn't this fucking music bumping, dude?
Like, facially laughable legal bases or statements of fact that it's possible I did this, it's possible I declassified them. We would never let those, like, I guess, facially implausible explanations and rationales be a justification to, like, okay, I guess I can't prove you lied 100% because I can't read your mind, literally. And I guess to some extent, it is true. I can't read Trump's mind at the moment he's making that statement. But my conclusion is based on all the circumstances.
It's like, that's not my standard for a lie, and we get into it. If there's actual evidence that something you're saying is mistrue, then that's enough to call something a lie. Like Darrell Brooks. And we're going to get into that a little more. You'll see here, he doesn't let me talk a lot once he starts to get frustrated. Once he had his first little mini tantrum there, he really just butts me out of the conversation.
Chances being, Trump is not like a mentally deficient individual. When I say that, it's like he is when I say mentally deficient, I mean like literally his mind is able to take in information and outside stimulus, and he can draw. He's able to draw conclusions. He's not like some person in a mental insane asylum. That's what I mean by that statement.
I'm kind of laughing at his statement, but I'm also kind of laughing at how poorly he's doing here in just putting together a basic argument.
I know that he has people in his ear, right, talking to him. Has some of the best intelligence into folks in the whole country. They haven't made a determination that there's fraud.
They did.
And so, based on the circumstances, based on the fact that he's been preempting and prepping for this very kind of thing for months and months, giving nonsense about that this is good. If I lose, it's fraud. All of that's
prepping.
The unwillingness to
making a statement about if I lose the election, it's fraud is him prepping. Like, what? He took no action. He said something he didn't like. That's prepping.
Commit to a peaceful transition of power. His unwillingness to commit to accepting the results of the election.
Commit to that peaceful transition of power as well.
All of that circumstance, and then the conduct on election night, to me, is overwhelming. That at the moment that he made that statement, he had absolutely no basis to claim that he...
So again, he just ignores the actual basis that Trump actually states that he had, says that all of his experts were giving him expert opinion, which we know that there were conflicting opinions in the room, and he did not follow the election denial opinions as strongly as they recommended, nor did he follow the election acceptance opinions as strongly as they recommended. He was teetering somewhere in between, listening to all of his advisors. So we know everything Pisco just said there is false. And the proper thing to do would be to call him out on these factual misstatements.
He had won the election. And for you to sit here and say, like, well, you can't read his mind, essentially I think is what you're saying. Either read his mind or have a memo that he wrote somewhere that says, I'm doing this in malice.
Yes.
I think that standard is preposterous.
No, that's the legal standard. So, sorry, dude. I totally understand your argument. Like, I get it. I just think that let me get to a few. I know I'm arguing a bit here against the January 6th committee and not so much you, but I was going to their statements so much as what they use as justification, that Trump actually incited the riot, that he was knowingly doing what you say he was doing. And one of them was using the phrase fight like hell. And they reiterated that. This is because he never actually gave me any examples to argue against. He just kind of said vague things that weren't backed up. The one example he gave was that Trump made a statement about if I lose, the election's rigged, as prepping. So I go to the January 6th committee because they actually put together a coherent message, and he can't. That several days in the January 6th hearings, I actually recapped multiple of those days in preparation with my notes here. Mm-hmm. And they fight like hell was the number one thing that they kept saying. It justifies it. Realistically, if you take a step back and just look at those words, it's not really that charged of rhetoric. a call to arms, or the X party is trying to steal your health care, so they're going to kill your grandparents. All kinds of awful, stupid rhetoric like that to drive the base out and piss people off happens every day in politics. And I know it's a whataboutism argument. I'm sorry for that, but I kind of just have to say it's politics as usual. What you said about Trump kind of setting up that he was going to lose the election in 2020 because of rigging. I could give you, and I don't have this prepared because I didn't think we were going to go this way, but I could give you that same narrative of Democrats kind of doing the same thing, setting up for their loss and saying it could be something nefarious leading up to 2020 as well. So, I mean, just to elaborate on that, I can find you some articles if you doubt this, that Democrats were saying election machines can be rigged, and there was a documentary that came out on HBO talking about how insecure our election machines were, blah, 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 they could all be hacked, and this and that. There was efforts from both sides previous to the election to somewhat set up the ground for them losing. It doesn't mean they were prepping. I mean, I hate to give this argument about how it's not as big as you're saying, because it is a big deal. It is a shitty thing to do, and it is bad. And I think Trump completely disqualified himself from polite society just based on his actions. But it's sad to say it's politics as usual. And the other thing that they kept bringing up at the I'm looking for my notes here on this. They brought up a second thing, and it was a video with Rudy Giuliani and Trump, and Roger Stone, where Trump was saying, "Look at how upset this fucking dude is. He's like taking tiny sips of his water and fucking grumbling to himself, man. Chill the fuck out, bro." If someone says you lose, you deny it. And they played that over and over and over again at the January 6 hearings as proof that Trump knew he was knowingly lying. Where, when I looked at that statement, I thought it's pretty innocuous, and I could see him saying that even if he thought he won. Like, I just think that more the January 6th hearing and less you, I think that their proof that this was intentional was really, really stretching. And I guess we'll see when the indictment comes out. Totally. And again, since he didn't give me any examples besides a statement Trump made, I had to go to January 6th because his argument was just his feelings on things, and that's it. It's like, bro, like, I'm coming with 8 pages of fucking facts. I watched the entire January 6th hearings. I watched Trump's entire speech. I prepped for this. I read like 20 news articles around the situation. I prepped for this. This guy goes into it blind, and you can obviously, he doesn't know what the fuck he's talking about. He can't even cite examples for his points.
Disagree. So, anything taken in isolation, and this gets also to what I was just discussing about the lead up to the election denial, as well as the actions on January 6th. You referenced the statement, fight like hell. Anything taken in isolation is liable to be innocuous if you just take it apart, right? Someone drove to the movie theater. Innocent, right? Someone drove to the movie theater and a person was killed in the movie theater. Oh. So now driving to that movie theater, okay, but that,
Again, we're doing another analogy where he obfuscates the details, boils it down to a point that I get what he's saying. I say all over and over, I understand what you're trying to say here, and this is why I disagree with it. So instead of addressing my point, he just goes back to rephrasing his point a different way, like I didn't understand it. They call this dude a good debater and professional lawyer. This is embarrassing.
Was it on that night? Oh, it was on that night. Okay, well...
Again, my points are going completely unaddressed while he just restates his initial statement over and over and over again.
Do we know the time of death? So, do you get what I'm getting at?
Absolutely.
And let's say that we know that the suspect had glasses. All right. Well, just having glasses, is that really enough to? So it's never going to be, if you start to pick it apart like this, and to take apart all the bricks, you have a wall, and you have all these bricks that make up the wall. And if you start to look at them individually, you're going to do like what the Supreme Court did in my opinion. This is a little polemical, or you could say a little editorializing, but we were discussing earlier about the phrase "waive or modify." For purposes of the HEROES Act for the student debt relief stuff that Biden did. And yeah, if you take apart waive means something, and modify means something, and there's case law on modify, and there's case law on what the word or means, and there's case law on what an emergency means. And yeah, if you take apart every single aspect of what's going on here, you can start to be like, well, didn't they say fight like hell? Well, didn't they contest elections before?
Basically what he's saying here, and this is the proper response, if we actually dig into the details and try to figure out exactly what was going on, we might find out something different than the narrative we want to believe, so we can't do that.
Lawsuits before.
Flat
I
out
would
denial of
encourage you to
election
look
as
at the big picture, right? The big picture, all the facts taken in totality. I think that's the reasonable approach to take. And when there's moments that comparisons can be drawn, absolutely make your comparisons, but realize and recognize that the difference in all the situations we're talking about is going to come down to factual disparities in total, right? And so, yeah, it was bad to do this, but this combined with that,
it's going to come down to facts. He just doesn't have any.
That's what makes a difference. And so that's kind of the approach that I would take. I don't know if you want to interject there at all.
Well, I kind of want to challenge one of your initial assertions when you were doing your introduction here. And another thing that happened in the January 6 trials is Hope Hicks testified. Now, when she testified, she said she was asking one of Trump's advisors to say something about being peaceful. And she testified that she was told no. I tried that already, and Trump said no. Yet, if you look at Twitter, the day before the event, he called for peace. He called for respecting the officers. He called for rule of law. Now, as you said in your introduction, as it took him hours to even lift a finger, I hate to quote the moment at the CNN town hall where Trump pulled the paper out because I thought it was very cringe. I hate the word, but I didn't like it. But that being said, when he pulled out the paper, it showed that about less than half an hour after the Capitol was breached, he called for peace on Twitter. And it's not that big of a deal.
Sorry.
Boom! There's the argument I was looking for. That's the exact right point.
If that happens, first of all, we're far afield from what I wanted.
It did happen. He doesn't know because he doesn't bother to actually look at the facts. He made his opinion off of emotions.
I'm going to go back to, which is the election day statement that he won. And I think if you say that's not a lie.
Again, this is about January 6th, and he wants to talk about November 4th only. I'm talking about January 6th. I'm talking about the January 6th Commission. He's like, no, let's focus on November. I know you want to pivot to something I said in the introduction that was factually false, but I want to keep focusing on this one thing that I have feelings about. Sorry, bro.
I want to make sure that your standard for lies is like at all workable or something that you would apply to anyone in your regular life.
Like, yeah, we're talking about Trump, and he's more worried about my standard for lies is that you have to prove somebody knew something and willingly told you something false, which is the legal standard and the colloquial standard for a lie.
Well, most the people who are accountable to you. So I am going to get back to that, but to say, like, this is what was needed at the time. What was needed at the time was him to say, immediately get out, everybody, right now, get out. You are being lawless. You will be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law. I condemn what's going on. That's what was needed. Not some equivocal, these are the things that happen when blah, 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 blah. That's our standard. So you get to say Trump gets a get out of jail free card as long as he rings some bells, right? He rings some bells.
Yes, the bells that he rings are be peaceful, don't enter the Capitol, law and order. Yes, when you ring those bells, you are now giving First Amendment protected speech because you're not directly inciting violence. So yes, those bells are called our rights, you fucking moron.
Bells, and all the, in my opinion, I'm sorry to say, all of these like pick-me Democrats are going to say, well, he said peaceful, didn't he? He just has to check the right boxes. Right? And he's taking advantage of that. He knows that. He knows that when he says go march peacefully. What do you think he's doing? His whole intent is to stay in power. Otherwise, why are you doing this whole rigmarole? Why are you asking?
So yeah, again, ignore Trump's words, ignore his First Amendment protected speech, and just read the tea leaves to assume his intent would be the right counter argument there. Sorry, you can't read his intent because his words contradict your reading.
To go through these efforts. Why are you spending millions on lawsuits? Why are you going and having all these conversations with legislators? You want to overturn the results of the election. That is your true intent. And to pretend that, well, because he rings the right bells. No. Someone who had the desire to get those people out of Congress, to stop what was happening, wouldn't say, these are the things that happened and go with peace. But he would say, leave immediately. I condemn you.
In a sense, it took about 20 minutes, but he did say that on Twitter, be peaceful, be respectful. We're the party of law and order. We respect the police, all those things.
Is that good enough for you? Is that good enough for you?
No, but he did at least attempt it. I mean, that's...
No, I'm sorry. He did not attempt it. Did he say leave?
Yeah, telling people to be peaceful, leave the Capitol, and preserve law and order and respect the police is don't be violent and get the hell out of the Capitol. He just didn't use as strong words. So again, going back to this, instead of him not doing anything or doing nothing, as he said, he did things that just were insufficient. And that's an opinionated statement, not a factual one. He said be peaceful. He said protest. The point was to protest at the Capitol.
Okay, if you're going to do that, I'm sorry, I'm losing my...
Just calm down, dude, man. I'm just trying. And he's getting upset now again because I'm pointing out that he's factually wrong. I'm gonna point out, so like, just let me.
Did he tell the protesters to leave in that moment?
No, he didn't.
Okay. Basic thing to do, right?
No. He wanted to tell the rioters to leave, not the protesters. He wanted the protest to happen.
basic thing to do. Like, this is not rocket science.
It did take about 2 hours for him to say go home.
I do not want you there. This is not my aim. This is not my mission. I don't want you to be there. I want you to get out.
Well, so we're kind of conflating rioters and protesters here. There was about 30 to 40,000 people. Yeah, go me. That's the exact right argument. Yeah, well, that's what I'm saying. The point was to get those 40,000 people to peacefully protest at the Capitol. So he did want them there. He didn't want people to breach the Capitol and commit crimes. And I think he even said, when he was asked if he would pardon them, is some of these people did really bad things, and no, I wouldn't pardon all of them. About his own supporters.
I mean, like, we're off to the race a little bit. I am not referencing the people who are lawfully gathered to protest.
Yes, that's exactly who he just referenced. You can rewind it 10 seconds to see he was talking about the protesters, not the rioters. That's exactly. He just said something completely different a minute later because I debunked him.
If you thought I was referencing those people,
no.
Then I don't know what conversation you're having. If you
the one with you fucking moron,
thought that Trump wasn't was addressing the people who are peacefully, then he was just not addressing the people I want him to address. So, which is it? Is he addressing the people who are peacefully gathred, or is he addressing the people in the building?
He's addressing the people in the building and saying he wants them to act like the peaceful people.
I don't want to hear at all anymore about like what the peaceful people are doing.
I don't give a fuck what you want. You brought him up, you dick face. Wait, hold on. Let me get my whole point out then, because the point is here, the reason he didn't ask them to leave, that's where this started. The reason he didn't ask them to leave because the goal was for people to go out and protest peacefully outside the Capitol. So that's why he didn't ask people to go home. Because he wanted them to protest.
You can tailor your. I'm sorry.
No, I'm just trying to answer that specific
point. I'm going to take 30 seconds. I'm going to turn off my camera. I'm going to go.
Bro, just let me.
No.
What a fucking little baby, dude. This is like a tantrum. You're saying things I don't like. I need to go to my safe space.
Because I can't. Like I don't understand what I'm. So you think it was impossible for him to craft a statement?
No, I don't think it was sufficient.
I'll give you an easy one. I support people peacefully being outside the Capitol, but everyone who's in there should leave immediately.
Listen, your claim
everyone
was...
else stay, but if you're breaking the laws and being where you're not supposed to, you need to get out right now.
Your claim to open this up was he didn't do anything for 2 hours. Boom! Back to the... Trying to take the argument back to actually what he said. They did nothing. Trump did nothing. He didn't lift a finger. He did nothing. I told you in the introduction, remember that. Because he's going to try to fucking say he never said that shit. He's going to pretend like he never put up a post saying Trump didn't lift a finger for 2 hours. 2 hours. My rebuttal to that is he did things, and now you're saying those things weren't sufficient enough. So I'm just saying the goalpost is shifting a little bit here from what you opened up saying.
I'm sorry. I don't think that what he did in those 20, 30 minutes, I don't think that helped at all. I think it made things way worse.
It doesn't matter if it helped at all or made it worse. It's the fact that he did it. That's all that matters. Like, he just completely is taking this factual debunk of his own words, which I just laid out in my argument perfectly. I did a much better job right now watching this than I thought I did. I'm fucking crushing this dude.
Let me say that again.
It's a call for peace.
Let me say that one more time for you. The tweet that you're referencing, not only was it not enough, in my, I think, reasoned opinion, it made things worse.
It made things worse to call for peace and say we're the party of law and order. Please respect the
What was that tweet doing?
Calling for peace and telling people to respect law and order.
It was a moral justification. It was a moral justification of righteousness. You think?
So I honestly legitimately don't know what the fuck he's trying to say here. So Trump calling for peace and law and order was a moral justification of righteousness that was intentionally making the riots worse. That doesn't make any sense to me. I think he's like so upset that he got debunked in real time that he's just making shit up.
Do you think that Trump, if he wanted to get them out, that's what he was going to do? He was giving them moral backing to what these are the things that happens when you fuck us over and see an election. That's what he's saying. You don't need to be a scientist reading the lines. And you trying to parse out because he said the word peace in there? Come on, read that tweet like a normal person.
I did.
Which is, that's exactly the things that happened, and we're gonna...
This is like wild to me that he's taking tweets that Trump called for law and order, peace, and peacefully protesting and saying read it like a normal person when he's the one that is not reading it like a normal person. Like, he's saying calling for peace, law and order, and peaceful protest and no violence and to get out of the Capitol. He's saying all that was actually him trying to incentivize more rioting and moral justification for rioting. It's wild, dude. This is like some low-level unhinged shit. I guarantee you this guy's never actually been a case lawyer in a trial because this is a terrible argument. He's doing a really bad job.
Go and undo them.
The tweet that I'm referencing was taken down, so it was only on a piece of paper that he presented at the CNN town hall.
I don't know the manner in which the tweet is manifested now, what relevance that has to our discussion. The point is, the tweet was up at the time of the relevant thing.
I think we're just
whether or not it's on a
here.
piece of paper now or not on a piece of paper now, I don't really understand.
The only point. I'm being way too polite. I should have called him out on his awful argument here real hard, but I didn't. The point I was trying to address with this was in your opening statement, you said he did nothing. So you're saying now his actions were insufficient. That's not the point I was trying to make. I was just trying to rebut the nothing.
When I said did nothing, I should have clarified. Did nothing to help the situation. He did do things to make it worse.
You don't have to clarify that. I don't see how calling for peace, law, and order
and
and
when I
respect
said
for
did
peace
nothing,
makes it worse.
When I said did nothing, I also didn't mean do neutral things like breathe. Like
Nobody's making this point.
Media,
he just wants to get off topic.
Think about his tummy. Like, there are a lot of things he literally did in that moment. He existed in the world, and he was in the White House, and he was in the car at various times, and he was doing things and being a human being. I'm not trying to say that he escaped the fabric of reality in that moment. When I say he did nothing, it's a reference to his lack of action to make the situation better.
I mean, he could have assembled the National Guard. I agree with you there. He could have done other things. Absolutely, he could have done more. But again, the only assertion that I was trying to rebut with this is that you said in the beginning that he did nothing. Now that you've amended that, I think we basically are in agreement.
I haven't amended.
You did.
Shit. I'm trying to explain to you that why you're reading of my tweet when you're saying do nothing. That what I'm referencing that you think that I might be saying he also didn't make things worse, or that I might be referencing things that are neutral.
No, we agree on the definition of nothing.
That is like he just did nothing in terms of like.
In the context he's using it in. It means when he's saying do nothing, he means Trump did nothing to try to stop the rioting. And I'm saying calling for peace, calling for law and order, telling people to leave the Capitol building and just peacefully protest is not doing nothing. He could have called the National Guard in sooner. I absolutely agree. His actions may have been insufficient, and I think that's a fair argument to make. But to say that his tweets were actually intentionally making it worse is just a fucking terrible argument. This dude is getting crushed, and he's, again, a trained lawyer.
Just stop existing. That reading of my tweet is a preposterous, some might say, socially inept reading of the tweet. I'm sorry.
I think maybe you can make that same claim about the crafting of it as well, because the word nothing has a pretty clear definition. If you say he didn't do enough, his actions were insufficient, I would have agreed with you. But you said he did nothing, and that's where the problem lies. And now you're saying nothing doesn't actually mean nothing, it just means not enough. If it means not enough, then I agree with you.
No, I'm sorry. So,
that's all. I took your words literally. And so that's the part I'm disagreeing with.
This is
I think
part
it's
and parcel of like what I view as the problem in your thinking. And in your
The problem in my thinking is that I'm reading into his hyperbole and believing it. The problem is that when he says Trump did nothing, he doesn't mean it. When he calls Trump a traitor, he doesn't mean it. And so I kind of just call out his credibility there. I'm being way too polite. I should have nailed this dude to the fucking wall for this shit.
Your approach to this whole thing, which is you're taking, yes, nothing in isolation has a particular meaning, and nothing doesn't include something. And so if you're taking nothing to mean literally anything, that is to say, I'm saying he did nothing while they breached the Capitol, then anything that Trump would do, whether topic relevant or not, would defeat my statement.
Yeah,
right?
So could we agree?
Wait. Can you answer that question?
Can you ask it again one more time? I'm sorry.
Yeah, okay, I'll ask it again. If you take my statement to mean, and I'll actually pull up the literal tweet and read it.
No, this was your introduction to the stream.
I'm sorry. I didn't even say nothing.
You did. You said 2.5 hours. You did nothing. In the stream, the introduction to the stream, not the tweet.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
I don't remember. And if you're gaslighting me, I'm gonna check.
No. Check it. Again, like if that's the case, I agree with you. So I think
I don't remember what I said. I didn't say that.
The only thing I disagree with
I just want to say, I'm gonna read the tweet. It said Trump did not lift a finger as our Capitol was attacked by a mob. Trump probably lifted a finger. Fair?
Yeah, he sent a couple.
Would you ever stop me and be like? Would you ever be like? Here's an image of Trump at the exact time that it was being mobbed. He's lifting a finger. So are you going to amend your statement? Would you ever say that?
I mean, again, like that lifting a finger, you were using a colloquial phrase. When you said nothing at the beginning of the debate, that's the part I'm arguing with. And you're saying now it wasn't nothing, it was just insufficient, and you think it might have actually made it worse. That's different, and I'm fine with that. I don't think there's much room for us to debate there. I think we're really splitting hairs.
No. The fact that you're bringing it up and you're...
I'm just, again, too nice. I should have nailed it home here. You said nothing, and now you're walking it back because you don't have any fucking argument, you hack.
Framing it as though I'm amending. My position is he did nothing to help the situation. He did not. That's what's the I guess the unspoken assumption, which is he did nothing to assist, nothing to help the people in our democracy and our republic in that moment. That's the part that's like quote unquote missing from that statement. To the extent that I made that statement, but if I said it, that's what's missing from that statement. But no reasonable person would take that to mean I meant literally didn't do nothing.
Yeah, I mean, he called. No reasonable person would take that to mean an argument that I'm not making. Yeah, you're right. He actually said something true here. No reasonable person would think when he says Trump did nothing that he meant he stopped breathing. Yeah, good job, dude. No one's making that fucking point. For peace, he called for not hurting police, respecting police. My dog's going crazy.
Now I am gonna do it step by step because I'm feeling we need it because we're going over stuff. Do you think I meant when you say that I said did nothing, that I meant literally he did nothing?
Bro, I've already given you this point 3 fucking times.
In the true sense of did nothing.
You said he didn't do anything for 2 hours. Yes, that's what.
Did I say do nothing or do anything? Do you remember?
I don't know. Do nothing. What?
So do you remember if I said nothing or anything?
No, I don't remember the exact verbiage.
So you don't remember if I said did nothing?
No. What is the point of this? Don't remember the exact verbiage. So, neither do you. It is what it is. But that's what you said at the beginning. Is 2 hours went by before he did anything.
Okay. Do you think when I said either do nothing, did anything, did not lift a finger, that what I'm saying is that he literally did nothing or didn't do anything or didn't lift a finger? Do you think that it's possible that I was meaning that?
Yeah. So like, what I'm saying here is, do you think maybe you could have just phrased it a little differently and been more accurate? Because he did do something. You just don't think he did enough.
What did I just ask you?
You asked me if I literally thought you meant he did nothing. I've already answered this question several times. Yes, I took your words literally. Yes.
No? Okay, then that's this is a big problem in the communication because
it is a big problem, and my whole point is the communication, that you are using hyperbole, like calling him a traitor, which means he's committing treason and should be put to death. You don't mean that. Well, maybe he does. You're saying he did nothing when he sent out multiple tweets within half an hour of the riot starting, calling for peace, law and order, leave the Capitol and respect police. We're the party of law and order is what he said. Please be respectful. Please respectfully protest. Please peacefully protest. These things happened, and the fact that this dude's just denying factual things to make his point and then trying to alter the definition of nothing, dude, it's so infuriating to listen to. I'm kind of commending myself for having patience and staying polite as long as I did, because I am not this nice in person.
Position is, no reasonable person hearing those words did nothing would think that I mean that he's like not taking a poop or that he's not.
He's still going back to help the situation. We are.
Yes,
you can hear the anger in my voice a little bit there. And it's not, because, again, he did some things. He called for law and order. He called for peace. It wasn't enough, but that's something. Like you're saying that made it worse because it invalidated it.
That tweet made things worse. That's the opposite of doing something.
How do you think anybody inside the Capitol saw those tweets?
Yes, I think it's quite possible.
I mean, maybe they did, but like most of the people that were busy destroying things, rioting, and committing illegal acts, I highly doubt most of them checked the Twitter to see Trump.
Okay, then if it had no effect, then what are you saying? Like, then
it was insufficient.
What you're saying is, okay.
That's my argument. It was insufficient. Nobody saw the tweets. It does not make Trump guilty of making it worse. Trump did, I guess, proper actions, but insufficient ones. He should have called in the National Guard to get him out of the Capitol building sooner. The 40,000 peaceful protesters that didn't enter the building did nothing wrong. They had the right to be there, and they were just fine. So it was mostly peaceful protest, in my opinion.
If it had no effect, right? If we're judging it based on the effect it had, then clearly there's nothing he did that was appreciable.
Yeah, I think.
But if we're judging it based on what does this message mean? If we're judging by like the nature of the message, what is it directing people to do? What is it actually getting across? If that's the analysis we're doing,
all this because he doesn't want to admit that he misstated a fact, dude. It's fucking wild.
Message universally, by the way, condemned at the time when people said it, when people saw it. News anchors, Republicans, even former Trump supporters were like shocked and saying this is despicable, this is it was horrible. That message was absolutely justifying
again, this was taken down. He was, again, the narrative was that he did
whether
nothing.
It's taken, I don't know why you're bringing up
this Twitter post was taken down within like 10 minutes of him posting it. So people that were saying that the actions of January 6th were disgusting didn't even know about this Twitter post. And it was brought up at the CNN town hall a few months ago, the first time that I heard it, and the first time a lot of people heard it, because Trump pulled out a piece of paper from his coat. So that's probably why Pisco doesn't know this, because he doesn't actually listen to Trump very much. He's just making shit up.
The fact that it's taken down.
Because
why did you bring that up? Because
this was taken down. Nobody really saw this.
He had to pull out a piece of paper at the CNN town hall a few weeks ago in order
Why
for
do you
this to
think
be.
it was relevant to bring up whether or not he took it down?
He didn't take it down. Twitter took it down, apparently. The fact is, he did
Why is that
something.
relevant? Why did you bring it up? I'm asking you.
I'm trying to think of it.
I brought it up because you said that when everyone saw this post, they were disgusted and said it was abhorrent. That's the post I was talking about that you said was disgusting, but nobody saw it. I was calling you a liar. Well, it's calling you incorrect is a better way to put that. Why did I bring that up? Sorry, I lost the train of thought.
Yeah, I mean, it's just a totally irrelevant thing to bring up the fact that it was later, days later, maybe
I agree, it is. So why the fuck did you bring it up?
a day later, maybe 2 days later, the fact that it was taken down couldn't be less relevant to what we're talking about.
I'm just saying that the narrative was that he did nothing for 2 hours. What in reality it was is he didn't do sufficient actions for 2 hours. And I think the wording of your tweet was hyperbole. And you're trying now to say that nothing means more than he did nothing. No, like you're trying to redefine the word is my point here. He didn't do nothing. He did insufficient actions. He called for peace. He called for law and order. He said, we're the party that respects the police. I don't care about popular appeal.
I mean, like,
most people in the country.
and you're
Now he's starting to cut me off again.
again. My tweet,
Trump's tweet.
You just referenced. Did you just reference my tweet?
No, Trump's tweet. I was talking. Sorry. I'll be more
Oh, you
descriptive.
you had just referenced my tweet and how I am trying to redefine words.
No. I was your introduction. So I'm also going against the narrative.
Man, this guy is having a hard time following here. I told him in the introduction, not his tweet where he said lift a finger. I said that's a colloquial phrase. What I'm addressing is your introduction where you said Trump did nothing. And I pointed that out when he said it, guys. I said, remember it. Pointed it out for you. He said that shit. And now here he is trying, you're talking about something else.
Just reference my tweet. Do you remember if you referenced my tweet?
No, your tweet. No. I referenced your
you
introduction.
Did reference my tweet.
No, I was making. You made an appeal to popular opinion. This was universally panned by some Republicans and some Democrats and everybody that was paying attention. Like, they also thought he did absolutely nothing for 2 hours, which isn't true. He just did insufficient things for 2 hours. He called for peace. He called for law and order. He called for respect for police. It wasn't good enough. I agree with you there, but it's not doing nothing to help the situation. And I still don't understand your logic on how it made it worse. Even though you explained it pretty thoroughly, I don't see the connection at all.
I mean, we can go around in circles for hours.
Yeah.
We can go around in circles, or you could admit that you said something factually false. I pulled out the facts, and now you're fucking throwing a tantrum, pussy.
I think we're splitting hairs here.
I don't think we're splitting hairs. I think this is indicative of what because I think we're gonna get into this stuff in with respect to the voting stuff. I think and his decision to announce victory in that moment, it's gonna be plagued by the same kind of what's going on here, which is every possible assumption made in favor of plausible deniability, and every possible assumption in this kind of weird literalism that you're employing right now. When people have meaning, when they say words and they have sentences, it's not always going to be
weird literalism. Reading people's words and using the actual definitions of words is weird literalism. So when you call somebody a traitor and say they're treasonous, you're not implying that they're a traitor and actually treasonous.
be the literal meaning of the words individually.
That's
When
my
people
whole
on
point.
anchors, when people are debating on CNN or other places, like, you didn't do anything you didn't do anything to help the Capitol, to save us, to save our democracy in that moment. You did nothing, right? And you point with your finger and you say, well, I walked around, I talked to people,
Again, he's ignoring the fucking fact check that I did on him. Trump called for law and order, peace, not harming the police, and leaving the Capitol, and being nonviolent when they protest. Within about a half an hour, those two tweets came out. Within a half an hour of the rioting starting. So he is factually incorrect, and I want to keep hammering that home. Go watch the CNN town hall with Trump from a few months ago, where he pulls out that piece of paper that he pulls out the tweets himself.
I thought about what I was going to do. I started prepping my statement. All those are things that you did. Those are all some things in the literal meaning of the word something. It's something. It's not nothing.
Back to this fucking argument
the way
again.
you would interpret someone
Something I already
accusing a
gave
Trump supporter
him
saying,
4 or 5
your
times.
president did nothing on January 6th.
It's hyperbole and it's not factually true.
It's meant. What's being conveyed.
Look, I don't want to read between the lines and read the tea leaves and try to
there we
assume
go.
I know Trump
Starting to get
better than
angry.
Trump knows himself. The point I'm trying to make here is he did do things, and the narrative was that he did not. It wasn't sufficient.
So this will be the last sort of question. So if I imagine he never did any tweet at all right? No tweets whatsoever. Okay? Okay? He never made any communication.
Yeah, okay. I'm with you, man.
It's breached. Same exact thing happens. and then he gives a statement like some hours later, right? Same exact thing, but just he doesn't do the intervening tweet that you're referencing. And then you're on a debate stage with someone who says Trump did nothing, and this.
If things that happened didn't happen, then yes, the conclusion would be different.
Version of you says, well, no, Trump breathed during that time.
Breathing is doing nothing, because doing nothing.
No, breathing is doing something.
You're still not
sorry,
listening to me.
Is breathing doing something?
You're not listening to me. I'm not saying he did. Now, the 6th time he's made this argument, I've agreed with him every single time. And he's still going back to this argument that I'm somehow defining the word nothing differently than him, even though I've agreed with him every single time he's made this point. This dude is fucking grasping for straws. He's getting crushed right now. Did nothing at all. I'm not saying he didn't go take a shit. What I'm saying is you said he did nothing to stop the conflict that was going on in the Capitol. Yeah. That's what we both mean by nothing. Okay, so just drop your line of argument you're going down, because you're not phrasing what I'm saying. You're not steelmanning my
breathing
point.
something.
Yes, but I don't understand what this has to do with my point, because you're not steelmanning it.
I'm going to explain it. So if breathing is something, then the statement Trump did nothing in the Capitol is technically false.
Yes, but see, we're already just ignoring me saying I agree with you. He's ignoring me saying we're defining nothing in the exact same way and going back to a definitional argument because he's factually incorrect. We agreed that when you say nothing, you mean nothing to stop the rioting. Okay. We've already gotten past this point.
No, we didn't agree on that, because
yes, we did.
This is no, we didn't, because what I'm telling you, the way that you're reading, when I say the literalism that you're applying and employing here is on the level that I just referenced.
So I'm telling you, it isn't. He did things. You're saying no, he should have done more, right? You see, he should have said, everyone get the hell out and go home and send in the National Guard, right?
No, he should have done something to help the situation.
That's what he did. It just wasn't enough. You're saying it made it worse. I don't know what proof is behind you saying his tweets made it worse.
Okay.
This is about a half an hour of this where I pointed out 2 tweets that he didn't even know existed that completely debunked his point, and he just tries to redefine the word nothing over and over.
So whether or not the end result is something, if you want to take that into like consideration, that helps my point. Because the end result is it didn't help. It didn't make people leave. And so if what we're assessing is post hoc, whether or not it had an effect, whether or not it was effective, I thought that was explicitly not what you wanted to do, right? And so whether or not it has an effect would only help my point, which is that the tweet had no effect.
Okay, so let me dial back to the whole
if you're going to take this,
keep going.
What I consider and what I think you would consider to be the right approach, which is what did he mean at the time? What was he trying to accomplish at the time, right? That would get into, and like, what is this tweet? What is the nature of this tweet? And before anything.
No, that's not my argument. My argument is if you read what he wrote or said, I think it was a verbal one actually. We want law and order. We want you to peacefully protest. Don't enter the Capitol. Respect the police. That's the conclusion I'm coming to, is taking his words and saying he said these words. That's it. I'm not trying to interpret anything a different way. I'm literally looking at the exact words he used. And I've already hammered this point home enough. The fact that he keeps going back to this argument shows me this dude doesn't have anything to refute this.
Comes about from it. What do we think he meant by it? That I consider to be the proper approach. If that's the case, what do you make of the tweet? And what I make of the tweet is, if he had the intention to get them to leave, he would have said it. Instead, he gave a moral grounding.
He did. He said, peaceful, don't go into the Capitol. That's telling him to get out. He wanted the protesters there. This dude is conflating the rioters and the protesters again intentionally because he's fucking flaily and can't admit he's wrong. I think he has an ego problem. I bet you this dude's dick is so small he pees on his balls.
No moral support for what they were doing. In that he was saying, these are the things that happen. This is what happens.
Yes, because he supported the protesters being there. Yes. Oh, good. I made that point. We've already hashed this part of it out. I agree. When I say nothing, I mean nothing to prevent the situation. Not that he didn't take a shit or breathe. I mean nothing to stop the rioting that was going on. I agree with you there.
But then what I'm saying is, like, that's the way any reasonable person would take the tweet. And now we're just having a factual disagreement about whether.
Not any reasonable person, because half the country disagrees with you. Any reasonable person, in his definition, is anyone that agrees with me. If you don't agree with me, you're not reasonable. And most of the country doesn't, I guess. Most of the country is unreasonable. Unless you vote the way he does, think the way he does, and have this blind hatred for Trump, you're unreasonable.
No, okay.
Any reasonable person that you speak to, maybe any reason, I'm reasonable. I'm not a. I don't think you're reasonable. I'm not a Trump supporter. I read the tweet differently.
You read my tweet to say
Trump's tweet.
Sorry, my introduction, because I never said nothing in the tweet that you're referencing. Sharpie just linked that I did say nothing in the introduction, just to be clear. And I wasn't denying. I said I don't.
He finally admits it.
The fact that I said nothing in the introduction.
Right there, that admission of good faith by me is more than I get from him in this entire debate. He can't even address my arguments. He keeps going off on some tangent about the definition of nothing, despite the fact that I've said now 7, 8 times. I understand how you were using the word nothing in context, and I agree that is the proper definition for the context. Now can we talk about your actual statement with that context implied? And every time I try to, he keeps going back.
I think most reasonable people would take it to mean did nothing to help.
I understand. I agree with you on what you mean by nothing. I'm telling you what you mean by nothing is wrong, because factually he did do things. They were insufficient, but it is factually incorrect.
Yeah, I don't think his intent was to help.
Okay, cool, but I don't read tea leaves, so I don't really have a.
I don't think you need to read tea leaves. If his intent was to help, it would have been dead simple.
Guessing somebody's intent and then ignoring everything.
That's the only way you get. Sorry, it's not. The only way to get to intent
that,
is through circumstantial evidence. That's the only way you get to intent.
I mean, there's also smoking guns, but yeah, I do agree with you on that.
No,
That being said, take all the evidence into account then. You're only taking the evidence that validates your claim into account and ignoring the rest.
No,
Trump,
I'm totally incorporating evidence that would counter my opinion.
Okay, so if that's the case, if Trump was malicious and he was doing this intentionally, why did he even care that they changed the law after?
Now you're referencing the Electoral Count Act.
Yeah, when they changed the law.
Why the hell you're doing that?
Because that is justification for.
Okay, I'm going to cut it off here because we're going to get into a different line of argument now. And I'm going to save that for a different video because we're already at 1 hour and 6 minutes here. So let me get the second half of this done another day. I work a lot. Sorry. I work sometimes 70 hours a week. A lot of my free time goes to writing scripts and doing research. I try really hard to be a factual person, factually led, factually driven, not speculate as much as possible. And if I do, I say, hey, I'm speculating, so take that with a grain of salt. So I think we're all done for today. And if you're watching, see you next time.